Great. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Cultivating Partnerships in Digital Humanities, Strategies, Tips, and Lessons Learned, brought to you by the ACRL University Library Section's Professional Development Committee. We're delighted to have you and our presenters here today. I'm Andrea Wright, a member of the committee, and I'll be moderating this program along with my colleague, Anna Sandelli, who's also a committee member. This is one of an ongoing series of programs sponsored by our committee. If you're interested in past or future ones, you can check out the link in the chat. Before I introduce our presenters, I would like to go over a few logistics. The session is being recorded, and we will send out the link to the video, slides, and any supplemental documentation to everyone who registered for the program. You can access the slides during the session if you wish by utilizing the link that I'm about to drop into the chat right now. The program will run for an hour total, including time for questions. The presentation component today will be recorded, but I will actually be ending the recording at the beginning of the Q&A portion. So please feel free to add questions into the chat box throughout the presentation. You don't need to wait till we get to the Q&A session. Anna will be collating them and will be prepared to read them back out to the presenters when we have time to get to those answers there. As you can see in the chat feature, please make sure that your messages go to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see the questions that are being asked. We'll post a link to a brief evaluation in the chat box after the Q&A session, so please take a few minutes to give us your feedback on today's program at the end. And with those announcements out of the way, I am happy to officially start today's program with a brief introduction of our presenters, and they can more fully introduce themselves as they see fit. Max Evgen works at MSU, Michigan State University, as faculty in the Department of Theater, where he teaches site-specific performance and is core faculty in the Art, Cultural Management, and Museum Studies program, where he teaches Introduction to Arts and Cultural Management, Learning and Experience in Museums, and Museums, Arts, and Culture in the Digital Future. He is also Digital Humanities Coordinator in the Digital Humanities program. He has more than 15 years of experience in arts and cultural management and informal science learning. Sharon Ladenson is Gender and Communication Studies Librarian and Coordinator of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Education at the Michigan State University Libraries. As an active collaborator, she has served on the MSU Digital Humanities Engagement and Outreach Committee and as a co-editor with Jenny Brandon and Kelly Sattler of the 2018 Library Juice Press book, We Can Do It, Women in Library Information Technology. Sharon currently serves as the convener of the ACRL Contemplative Pedagogy Interest Group and recently served as chair of the ACRL Women and Gender Studies section. Kristen Mapes works with faculty and students to run the Digital Humanities program and community at MSU. She teaches courses in digital humanities to undergraduates and graduates, as well as a DH-focused study abroad program to the United Kingdom. Her background is as a librarian, and she has most recently served on the ACRL Digital Scholarship Section's EDI Committee and the Rare Books and Manuscript Section's Diversity Committee. And Amanda Tickner is the GIS and Makerspace librarian at Michigan State University Libraries. She's taught an undergraduate seminar in digital humanities, regularly teaches workshops on a variety of digital research methods, and assists classes with using the 360 immersive display in the library's Digital Scholarship Lab. In 2019 through 2021, she served on the ACRL Digital Scholarship Section Steering Committee as an elected member at large. She has also served on a variety of digital humanities related committees on MSU, including the MSU Digital Humanities Engagement and Outreach Committee. So without any further delay and with much gratitude, I will hand it over to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. It's so great to see all of you here today. Kristen, I guess, will be sharing our slides. If you can share your screen, just to, can everyone see our slides?
Just checking that when I went to full screen, it actually shared the full screen. Okay.
Yes, we are seeing your full screen. You're good.
And please feel free, everyone, to introduce yourselves in the chat if you would like. It's just so great to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for attending our presentation. And we're looking forward to sharing information about strategies for cultivating partnerships in digital humanities, as well as tips and lessons that we've learned along the way. So with that, we will briefly introduce ourselves again to you.
Yeah, I'll get us started. I'm not going to add much, but I'm Kristen Mapes. As mentioned, I am a librarian and have enjoyed being able to be a part of the librarian community while working outside of the libraries at MSU, and thrilled to be talking with you today about the collaborations that bring myself and my colleagues back into connection with the libraries, especially around things like digital humanities and digital scholarship, which we might use interchangeably today.
And hello, I'm Max Evgen. Like the introduction said, I'm faculty in the Department of Theater, but I am also Digital Humanities Coordinator in the Digital Humanities Program, and as such, I'm chair of the Engagement and Outreach Committee, which we'll get to be talking about.
Hey, I'm Amanda. That introduction seemed fine to me. A heck of a lot to add. Yeah.
And I'm Sharon Ladenson, again, Gender and Communication Studies librarian at MSU, and just really excited to be here with all of you today. So for this initial part of our presentation, we'll be sharing some background about partnership opportunities that have shaped collaborative programming in digital humanities at MSU. So next slide, please.
I'm sorry, can we make it full screen?
Apologies, I had asked and had been told that it had been full screen. So let me stop sharing and I'll reshare.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks so much, Kristen. So the first example that we'll be sharing is Locus, which is a mini symposium. It's an opportunity for students, faculty, and practitioners from across campus to share ideas and works in progress through short presentations, typically 5 to 7 minutes each. And the sessions focus on broad themes, methods, and/or topics in digital humanities and social science work. Some examples, just a few examples of past themes, have included social media and social analysis, text analysis in digital humanities and social science, and pedagogy in a digital age. And the Locus Forum is organized by the MSU Digital Humanities Engagement and Outreach Committee, which Max will talk about more in just a few minutes. I had the opportunity to join the committee after reaching out to Kristen and to Megan Kudzia, who at the time was one of our digital scholarship librarians, about doing collaborative programming focused on digital scholarship and gender studies. And so as a member of the Digital Humanities Engagement and Outreach Committee, I had the opportunity, it was very rewarding to co-coordinate with other members of the committee 2 Locus forums. The first one was in the fall of 2019 and focused on the theme of visualization, gaming, and digital storytelling. One of the hats that I wear as a subject librarian is liaison to the Department of Media and Information and the MSU College of Communication Arts and Sciences. And I reached out to a faculty member from that unit with whom I'd recently had an extensive conversation about opportunities to partner with the library, including for events to bring faculty across campus together to do research on gaming. And she offered to participate as one of our lead discussion facilitators during the session and encouraged her graduate students to attend, which they did. And it was also well attended by faculty and students from the MSU College of Arts and Letters and colleagues from the library, including one who did a presentation at the forum. My second opportunity to co-coordinate a Locus forum focused on the theme of intersections of digital technology and gender studies. It was in the fall of 2020. And that involved reaching out and working with several people in the MSU Center for Gender and Global Context, including their co-director, their graduate advisor, and their office manager. It also involved reaching out to individual faculty in the College of Communication Arts and Sciences to participate as presenters, and 2 of them volunteered, including one of our newest faculty members. We conducted the forum online since this was in the fall of 2020, and we had active participation in the virtual environment from folks in the College of Communication Arts and Sciences, College of Arts and Letters, College of Social Science, and library colleagues, including one who did a presentation. And of course, the Digital Humanities Engagement and Outreach Committee as a whole was incredibly valuable in partnering and providing critical support, most notably through really effective promotion of both Locus events. And now I'll hand it over to Max to talk more about the committee.
Great, thanks, Sharon. Yes, as part of my role in Digital Humanities, I'm the chair of the Digital Humanities Engagement and Outreach Committee. The way that we operate is that we ask for volunteers to be on the committee, as opposed to other committees that are in DH that are elected. This one is voluntary. And so we enlist people from around the university for a 1 year or more. Sometimes we can be a little flexible, and sometimes we can do 1 semester if you need it. And it's easy to say, well, okay, I can rotate off this or rotate on this committee. But we handle most of the sort of like smaller scale events that happen throughout each semester, because there are other larger scale events that DH at MSU plans and operates. One specifically, if we advance to the next slide, is that camp, which we do every fall and spring. We do an in-person event in fall and a virtual event in spring. And it is a day-long unconference style event. And the planning committee has very bounded participation. We get very specific about, and I'll show you a slide later, about the clear ways that we say, okay, this commitment means this many meetings at this particular duration at this time in our schedule, right? To be very clear about that. But we include librarians and staff to, in particular for the in-person event, to create a welcoming event for each of these. And they're a lot of fun. Yeah. So, and then Kristen, I'll hand it off to you to talk about the other large program that we do, the Global DH Symposium.
Yeah, so, and I'm just putting the link to it in the chat. In addition to the work that we do through the Engagement and Outreach Committee and the That Camp planning team, over the course of the year, Digital Humanities at MSU partners with people from around the world, honestly, to run the Global Digital Humanities Symposium. This is going into its 8th year and will take place again in March of 2023. It's something that we have always partnered with the library at MSU in doing. Initially, at the earlier years, that was because, of course, because for many years we've had the event hosted in the library, which is just the natural place to bring people together from across disciplines. It's a welcoming space as well for people from beyond the university to gather and come regionally or internationally to attend an event and to talk about and share their work that takes place in the research area, teaching area, intersections with both, and often is in community engaged work too. So for our own planning, we have always brought in and incorporated librarians and library workers of a variety of statuses into the planning team that is also on a voluntary kind of a by appointment basis. And this planning involves meeting once a month as a planning committee as a whole. And then everyone in that planning team also participates in a subcommittee that takes on a specific aspect of planning the symposium. And so every team member also has a monthly meeting for that subcommittee. Participation in planning this event is hopefully something that it can be, really rewarding for people involved, and can also reflect well onto their work and how they're evaluated and their own kind of evaluation annual report context and those sorts of things as well. We've also worked to provide support and credit to people participating in the planning of the symposium. So last year we experimented with providing honoraria or research funds for planning committee members. We've moved away from that because of challenges with providing that equitably across international and tax boundaries. But we also provide certificates for participation and letters of support for people who participated in the planning of this. So that has always involved librarians. It's involved people, and when I say librarians, I mean library workers writ large. Has also involved the library as physical space and the library as a place where work in global digital humanities and global digital scholarship happens. I didn't even mention as well the fact that the symposium also makes sense to work with librarians on, because we are interested as well in the work that librarians and library workers are doing in this space. So the program and the topics involved certainly are of interest and intersect with this as well. Stepping aside from the event planning, we also have worked together across the College of Arts and Letters and Digital Humanities with the library to fund and put together and support now for 3 years a graduate arts fellowship. So I'll share a little bit about the College of Arts and Letters side of this and then hand it over to Amanda if you want to talk briefly about kind of where we're at in this fellowship at this point. This fellowship is funded by the College of Arts and Letters, which is the unit where Max and I are located and where Digital Humanities is funded through. So this is the idea here is to place a graduate student who's coming from the arts, and that could be within an officially art graduate program, like an MFA program, but could be alternately someone from an English department or another department in our college that is undertaking artwork, to place them in the Digital Scholarship Lab in our library, provide them with funding support. That's a $5,000 funding support for the summer that's funded through our college graduate office, and let them loose with support through our community and with technology support to create art over the course of the summer. So this is supported, and the people who have received this fellowship have been gone through an application process that is reviewed by our faculty advisory board in the Digital Scholarship Lab. And then the whole idea here is that it's a way for the lab to see how art can be created in this space. And ideally, we're working toward making it possible that the art that's created throughout this fellowship, created in this space, might be available to kind of become a part of university library collections. Amanda, do you want to add anything about the fellows that we've had thus far?
No, I would just say that I think in the future we want to potentially expand to include more possible departments and subject matters, but funding so far has been limited to Cal, which is, and it's been a great program, I would say, except that I'm about to talk challenges. So and I didn't actually have a specific challenge slide for this one, but we have had some issues in actually getting outcomes, I guess I would say, because it is a bounded amount of time. It's just the summer. And I think the way we've kind of tried to solve that and had the best success is to really get the graduate students advisor involved. So I would suggest if you're starting a graduate arts fellowship sort of program, that kind of engagement from the faculty advisor might be helpful. But in general, and initially too, when we started this program too, I would also say that we were going to have a community artist component, but then COVID. So we might actually pick that bit up again too.
Yeah, the first round of running this fellowship, we selected the person who would in February of 2020, and they were meant to do the fellowship during the summer, and they did, but it was obviously challenging that year for a variety of reasons, including things that weren't COVID specific, but related to some challenges that student just happened to encounter. And And so our whole plans of how things would work, which were very oriented around being in the physical space, were kind of thrown up. So this year was the first year when we had a little bit more success in terms of having some outcomes from that. And that was certainly building on stronger relationships with faculty advisors. One thing in terms of just building on the lessons learned is that, and this ties into some of the things we'll say in a minute, but that being clear about what you need and then pushing to hold people to that can sometimes actually, I would suggest, be a service rather than just sort of a naggy thing. But we're going to move along then to talk about the Digital Scholarship Lab itself briefly. This is a big topic that we could talk about for ages, the idea of digital scholarship labs, what they look like in different institutional contexts, how they came to be, how they're managed, all of those things. What their remit is varies widely institution to institution. But at Michigan State, the digital scholarship lab that exists in our libraries was created through university funding that was received because the library partnered in particular with the College of Arts and Letters, but also with the kind of endorsement and specific interest from a variety of departments and programs from across campus that signaled an investment and an interest in having a common space that could be devoted in particular to pedagogical focuses, but also to support research at the intersection of technology and computational work and the digital. So that particularly the College of Arts and Letters worked directly with the library on making a huge financial investment, as well as an investment in time and people in making this lab a reality. So the College of Arts and Letters folks were involved, along with librarians, of course, in planning the physical space, deciding on everything from, carpeting to furniture, but then also that partnership has continued, and we continue to have monthly meetings across the Digital Scholarship Lab planning team and representatives from the College of Arts and Letters to help ensure that the activities that we all care about are kind of being shepherded along, and that the work that the DSL is doing can be supported through Arts and Letters, and that we can create new initiatives such as the fellowship program that we just discussed. And also the library has an inroad to work with Arts and Letters about if there's things that they need or that they need us to do better. We have that communication, that avenue of communication, which is really essential because our college invested in this space in the libraries because we don't want to just create separate more siloed places for just the humanities and the arts to do digital things. We want to be where everybody else is. We want to intersect with each other in communal spaces, but we don't want to do that to the exclusion of other fields as well. So we can talk more about challenges and lessons learned through that long, process where we've also had variety of kind of personnel changes and that sort of thing, which also means we're continually needing to kind of re-articulate and reinforce the values of this collaboration. But that's a bit of background there.
So thanks so much, Max and Kristen and Amanda, for sharing information, some background about partnerships at MSU. And now that we've provided some additional background, Amanda will continue with exploring some of the challenges that partnerships present and recommendations for how to handle them.
Yeah, so a lot of these challenges are coming from my experience in the beginning steps of the Digital Scholarship Lab. So the planning of the Digital Scholarship Lab and the development of the Digital Scholarship Lab, which I was pretty involved with from the very, very, very beginning. And so that's the framing. It's so a lot of the kind of Locus programs and those sorts of things also suffer from some of these, but the real frame is in the actual physical space of the Digital Scholarship Lab. And some of the things we encountered with the library and Cal relations while going through that process. So one of the biggest concerns, I don't think there's a library in the world that doesn't have space issues because universities always have space issues. Everyone always wants more space. Oh yes, I'm sorry. I should have said College of Arts and Letters. Thank you for putting that in there, Kristen. So yeah, everyone wants space because universities never have enough space. Nobody has enough space. And so libraries are used to fending off, I think, most large libraries on large campuses with space issues, fending off people from poaching space. Open spaces are often, if we cleared out a space, we have to fill it right away because the administration might look to put offices in there otherwise, and so forth. And so with this partnership with Cal, one of the things that came up with a lot of librarians and a lot of concern in the library was concerns about physical space and what the expectations might be there. Would Cal faculty end up with offices in the library? This was not great. So people were very anxious about that. And I think that was mostly resolved by kind of clear communication. Like, we have a memorandum of understanding. We have these things. Don't worry, everybody. It's not a takeover. That kind of communication. Also, within the space, Cal has a reservable room that is specific to Cal faculty. And so that kind of bounded things as well. Like, here, this is Cal space within the larger space. Everything's okay. So having kind of boundaries, saying this is what the library is and this is what the other folks is in terms of space, and just clear communication, like reassuring everyone that things are okay, and setting expectations clearly, all help with space concerns. So that's space. One issue that kind of came up. Concerns about audience. So initially in the space planning for the Digital Scholarship Lab and kind of thinking about partnerships in general, one of the things the library wants to do, of course, is not be a siloed space. We're there for everyone. Everyone should have a place at the library. We're not a department. We want to serve the whole university. And when you frame things in terms of digital humanities, this is a digital humanities space that does limit things quite a bit, better or worse. Sometimes it's nice to have a targeted audience, but in general, for library spaces and library programs, we have to kind of have a big tent. And so the way I think libraries have traditionally approached this is to sort of say digital scholarship rather than digital humanities. And that was something that I had to, keep repeating over and over again in early discussions, especially with deans and folks who just were, oh, it's digital, so it's digital humanities. Well, because honestly, outside of libraries, nobody says digital scholarship, right? It's a little vague. So keeping that frame broad, I think helps people be reassured that we aren't being too hyper-specific. So that was another concern. Next slide, please. This one, I hesitated to even put this in here. This almost comes out of my own angst as a digital scholarship librarian, essentially, because I'm a GIS librarian, Geographic Information Systems. So I'm helping people doing digital scholarship all the time. And liaison librarians were very, very anxious, I would say, when the Digital Scholarship Lab was being developed and when it was being opened, and when my position came to be in the library, and when other digital scholarship folks arrived. Liaison librarians have spent a long time developing clients with their faculty. They've spent a long time developing those relationships, and they don't like to see other people necessarily talking to their people. And that can be very tense. Very, very tense. And I know it's not just me that's experienced this at my institution. I've talked to other digital scholarship folks who have experienced it at their own institutions. So subject-specific liaison librarians are not always pleased about having, other folks talk to their people. And there isn't a great solve for this, I don't feel, other than trying to loop people in. And that was really frustrating for me at first, I will admit. This is sort of me putting my heart on my sleeve, because it felt hurtful. It felt like liaison librarians were saying, we don't trust you. We don't believe you can do your job. We don't believe that you're actually going to do a good job with our departments. And so we have to hear about every last thing that you're doing, or we're not going to feel comfortable. That kind of sucked. But I've come to realize, I've reframed it in my head. So I kind of encourage all you digital scholarship librarians out there that may be listening to this to reframe, because the way that I reframed it was, I'm promoting myself to the digital scholarship, or the digital scholarship lab, my work, whatever. When we're looping in liaison librarians, we're promoting those activities so that folks feel comfortable, and also that they know what we're doing, because then they can help us. They can say, oh, I'm interested in that, or, you know, oh, this other faculty member might like to do that. So keeping people in the loop doesn't have to be antagonistic. It can just be friendly and nice. But sometimes it initially can come off as perhaps a little less than friendly. But over time, I have found that with the digital scholarship lab's been open about 6 years now, I think, 5, a while. And over the time, people are less and less interested in getting looped in, honestly. There we are. Yes. They're less than, it seems longer than that, but, and with my own GIS work, people are, I initially would loop people in, and now they're like, well, you don't need to do that anymore. Just stop. So I think over time, people get less anxious. But that initial kind of, when things shift is when the communication has to be high, because that's how you kind of manage change. So there's that one. This is just a basic one. I mean, everyone has this. Time. Who has time? Nobody has time. So that, and there isn't a great solve for this one, although we'll talk about a few things, but I don't feel like there's a great solve for this. Faculty don't have time to partner necessarily in advisory capacities. Librarians don't necessarily have time to be on committees. It's we're all crunched for time. It's very hard. We don't have time to do all the programs that we want to do. I don't have time to do the promotion I want to do. You know, there's just not enough time. And promotion is, I think, also a big part of partnership, because people have to be kind of aware of the activities that we're partnering on. And that takes time. So there's just a lot of challenges around time. There's not a great solve for it, but there it is.
So thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing information about some of the challenges. We will be sharing some lessons that we've learned from investing in collaborative partnerships. So next slide, please. So as we've mentioned, particularly, you know, echoing Kristen and then building on what Amanda was saying about challenges, having a mechanism for formal credit for participation is important for participants to justify their time in investing in this collaborative work. I would say that the committee model can be helpful in this regard, particularly as librarians at MSU, we can document our contributions as part of the required service component of our work. And for all employees, I think it's very helpful for a committee chair to write a letter to the person's supervisor to support the process of documenting their contributions. And I'll hand it over now. Next slide, please.
Okay, and then one thing to do is to make the committee involvement really clear and really easy, right? We set clear expectations for the number and length of meetings, like I said before, and other commitments that are involved, and then structure the meetings with more co-work, less homework. In the slide, you can see this is the call for participation for our upcoming that camp that we're having in January, and we say, okay, this involves 1 2.5 hour co-work session, another 2.5 hour co-work session, in which you actually get a lot done, and so it makes it so that you don't have to do stuff in between those, because you get so much done together in those times that a lot of that planning gets taken care of. Then one hour long planning session in the days preceding the event, just to cross any last T's, dots, and I's, right, and participate in the day of the event, and then do a 1 hour long, sometimes even less, debrief later after the event, so we can see what people put in the we collect a survey for people out there to see like what they like about it, or did we accomplish the goals that we set out to do with this event, so then we can recommend it for the next planning committee for the next event. So yes, definitely clear expectations about number and length of meetings, and more co-work, less homework.
Yeah, and all right, to build on some lessons, another one we've mentioned, or I think maybe Amanda had mentioned, the MOU that we have, or I guess we have had and it needs renewing, between the College of Arts and Letters and the libraries. And so that was I have put an image of the MOU on this slide, but if you which is deeply inaccessible, but I have the text of the entire MOU in the speaker notes of the slide. So hopefully that helps. But advocating for MOUs is a really good step for building the relationships that can allow for better understanding in the long term, and can serve, as Amanda referred to earlier, can serve as sort of a fallback when people have concerns, that there are set things and set parameters for a relationship. So this, of course, makes the most sense when you're talking about kind of larger scale collaboration. So this was prompted between our two larger units when the Digital Scholarship Lab was created, and it specifically laid out some things that I realize now we're a bit more aspirational that we can still improve on in the future in terms of hiring of graduate assistants and that sort of thing, but also the way that space will be used and the fact that these units are partnering together. So it provides structure for that, and it creates bounds that everyone can kind of work as a baseline from. They don't need to be extremely specific. And this is something that, you know, is kind of at the like dean or potentially like assistant dean level or whatever is analogous at your institution, that sort of level of thing. But it's really helpful to say, we know that we have this. In our context, it was created for a 3-year period to then be reviewed and renewed. So it could be set up in a variety of ways, but that's the one that happened with us. And then the last kind of slide on lessons learned is just something that I sort of alluded to before as well, about we've had some sort of personnel shifts, as I'm sure many places have experienced over the last couple of years. That's always something that just happens anyway. And of course, we've had a variety of times of challenge through the pandemic, and especially when we're talking in the context of collaborations that involve working with the library as a space. We've all continued to work with, you know, a library people and people from arts and letters and digital humanities throughout all of this time, but trust is the most essential thing to allowing for collaborations. And that sounds really simple, but it's so important. So whatever needs to be done to try to build human connections, I would suggest, is really essential, because those are the sorts of things that can allow for conversation and clarification when there are confusions or when there are concerns. And that needs to be built when there are personnel changes. New people need to have a chance to learn about what the history of a relationship is across units, or why things are the way they are. So that way there can be an understanding that no, like X or Y place isn't trying to take over. We've been working on, you know, through a framework through which we, you know, are not doing that for years. And so you don't need to fear, sort of deal. But it does come up, and it will continue to come up as long as there are, you know, new relationships and new avenues for trust that need to be built. So when that does, if that erodes at all, then the work needs to resume, or at least that side of it needs to resume. But that does mean that when things are challenging, you can lean on each other if you have that trust. So our Digital Scholarship Lab at the moment is lacking ahead. We have the search is out. We should put the call for the hiring in the chat, but we're looking for a new head. And so we're in a moment of challenge with our Digital Scholarship Lab. And so that has prompted myself and my colleagues to play a bigger role in helping continue to keep running some of the key programs that the Digital Scholarship Lab helps run. For example, we have a project incubator program. We're continuing the digital fellowship, our digital arts fellowship. And so we're playing a larger role in some of the kind of running of some of the key things that the Digital Scholarship Lab is doing. We're helping with some consultations as they come in ways that we wouldn't have before. But because we have a level of trust and a relationship that is based on collaboration over years, it's not being our partners are understanding that that is us trying to help, and that is an opportunity for us to help and not an opportunity for us to come and take over. And relatedly, when we need things from the library, when we need relationship support from librarians, we're able to rely on folks to kind of come in. Amanda, for example, came in and taught one of our digital humanities courses, which is essential. We have trouble staffing courses sometimes. And so it's very helpful to be able to rely in a back and forth relationship. So I know that we've gone a bit over in some of the talking that we wanted to do, but I'll hand it back over to Sharon.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. So at this point, we can, first of all, we can stop the recording if we could do that so that we can cultivate both a safe and brave space.